right, so Mark, thanks so much for meeting us with today. We really think this is wonderful. We just heard about this organization about 2 weeks ago. We already think it's great. We've been telling lots of people, and we want to learn more. And we thought, what a great opportunity to share with all of our other providers, and maybe they can join along and make referrals to you.
Yeah, that's excellent.
So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about what Organic Conceptions, that was kind of you've masterminded it, and kind of tell us a little bit more about it, please.
Yeah, I think, first of all, thanks for this opportunity. It's amazing. We do work with a few of the Billings practitioners and feel lucky. It's an amazing partnership in terms of the combined work and what that could mean for a couple who's living with this uncertainty when you're trying to conceive. So thank you for the opportunity. I'd be happy to share maybe how this got started, because I think for so many of us, and I'm sure you too, there's something very personally that brings most people to this work. It's not something you just wake up one day and decide to go do. And for my wife and I, we just had a long battle fighting with, I hate the label of infertility, but struggling to conceive, and experienced a very long delay in our ability to have children and build our families. And over the course of about 8 years total, it was 4.5 years for my son Maxwell, and then we struggled with secondary infertility for 3 years for my daughter Emerson. Through those two instances, we had a story that I'm sure you have heard, or those people listening, which is the story of the couple that tries for years, then they decide to shift their path and move in a new direction, whether it be adopt a child or something like that, and then they have the surprise, unexpected conception. And I have to preface this, that when you're struggling, honestly, these are the most annoying stories on the planet to hear for like 3 reasons. And it's important to acknowledge that, because these stories make you feel like you've literally created such a bad environment that you are causing the problem. It indirectly does, because it's suggesting that, hey, they just went on vacation, or they went and did this, and it's suggesting that you truly are in control of why it's not happening. So it's just a horrible way to think about yourself, that, you've created an environment where life cannot withhold, And then 2, it almost indirectly tells you need to give up on what you so desperately want in order to get the family. And when you're set on a particular path and you have a vision on how you see your family being built, it's unrealistic to think that you would want to convince change your course or change your path until you're ready to, until it felt right for you. So we always felt like, well, we're not looking to adopt a child right now, or foster care, or whatever it might be. And then thirdly, it was just somebody else's success story. And when you're struggling to conceive, all you see is bellies, and all you hear is announcements and other successes. So really, these are pretty annoying stories for my wife and I, but on 2 separate occasions, we became that story. Where we had this complete unexpected conception. And I will bore you from the details, but each story in itself is so fascinating, and there's so much that we learned from that. But the long story short, twice we became that story. And for years, I would just constantly, you reflect back. And this is one of the most hardest experiences that my wife and I ever dealt with. And it happened not just for a week or a month. This was literally years of our life that was lost to the fight and the struggle. And I just, for years, would just say, we lived it twice, and there was far more happening behind the scenes on both occasions when we had this unexpected conception than the act of adopting a child. There was emotionally, psychologically, the way my wife looked at herself, her body, our relationship, our enthusiasm for life. There was so much stuff that was happening there that we both found ourselves surprised that no one had ever researched stories like these. Like, why haven't everyone knows this story? Why haven't we gone deeper to understand statistically? Are there commonalities? Are there patterns? Are there insights that can hopefully emerge to help guide couples on their personal journey? So yeah, it was a very personal story. For years, we'd be looking to say, I can't believe that no one has researched them. And I became lucky enough to become very close to Dr. Kate Webster. She's a key part of our organization, and she's a research psychologist. And this is what she does. She's passionate about women's, societal dynamics that are impacting women. And she agreed to partner with me to go out there and do research that was never done before. And that's kind of how Organic Conceptions was born.
Wonderful.
That's incredible. I mean, it's really, of course we do know people, and I have friends who, like you said, they thought they wanted to get pregnant, they couldn't, they adopted a baby, and then, a few years later, lo and behold, all of a sudden they're pregnant. It's like, they thought they could never have children. They thought it was a closed door.
And there's so many stories like that. The question is, are they really one-off flukes? And of course, there's a miracle there, and you could just pass it up to that. But is there not more happening emotionally to women,
Right.
to couples, the way we're looking at this process? And the answer is yes. But it takes courage and vulnerability to actually stop and enter into understanding where are we emotionally in this journey, and to start to take stock of what the journey might be doing to you. So yeah, it is. And I will tell you, Dr. Kate, she's great. She was on, she said there might not be a common thread across these stories. When you start into the research process, you don't know. And she looked at me as like, warning, you're passionate about this, but if there's not statistics that can thread these stories together, then you need to be mature enough to walk away. And it was the complete opposite. Every story would map to these, we'd have these kind of 9 emotional transitions that got discovered in this research. And it was amazing how every story could truly start to map to this. Yeah.
So you're really viewing infertility in a whole different way. You're really coming at it. You're not dealing with all the medical stuff. You're really dealing it from an emotional, psychological way, right? Is that, so you're starting to say there's 9 different
Yes.
areas, I guess, that people go through?
Yeah, it is absolutely. If we think it takes a partnership, we are not there to say, judge anyone's path. We have a lot of doctors and practitioners that include us. What we are advocating for is couples are more than just biological beings and cycles and lab results and the age of their eggs. And there is an emotional component that has to be considered as part of preconception care and self-care. And yes, our entire effort is to advocate that there's another dynamic, another piece of the puzzle. We stay far away from ever suggesting the program is about conceiving. And you could argue why. No one can make that claim. We all don't know. All we can try to do is bring people to this place where emotionally they come back to themselves. They're not defining themselves by what's not happening. They have the tools to understand where they are, appreciate their uniqueness of their journey, understand how to cope and shed that anger and jealousy, stay united and connected as a couple, and ultimately make the choices that feel right for them. Because when you're struggling, you're drinking from a fire hose of what to do, not do, look at, eat, stand on your head. It is overwhelming. And for so many couples, life just becomes, my wife and I, years of our life was lost to the turmoil and the constant rumination and compulsion with what to do, how to solve this, how to fix this. And I think that this tries to get couples centered again, united together, and help them set a course that really respects their values, respects them as an individual and as a couple.
So they're going to be, this couple would be, whoever these couples are, they may be working with the doctor, with a clinic, whatever. They may be working with the NSE provider, and then they're working with your program, kind of together but separately. So what does your program entail? Are you meeting on like a Zoom type thing? Are you just doing it's a program that they just get and they do on self-paced, or do they meet with people live? Yeah,
that's excellent. First of all, I can't speak enough to our partner network. They're already going to these partners. It's where they're already opening up. They're sharing intimacy. They're sharing details of their cycles. Our best relationships is where these partners actually get trained on our program. So we have a training program just for practitioners. Why? We want you to better care for them. We want you to understand and have empathy to what the emotional stages look like. We want to empower you to actually check in with them as they're progressing across the program, to see how they're doing and support them as they're moving through. Not asking you to be a therapist, but it's to say, I understand now. I understand these transitions. Where you see yourself in this. So there's a program that we have just for partners, just so you know. We see our partners as critical because we can't do the one-on-one work that you can do. The program for couples, though, it's an online audio program. So there's 8 self-paced modules that couples walk through. It's close to 7.5 hours. So this isn't preaching to people to let go, relax, it is psychologically helping them understand what are these transitions, help them hear the voices of what these stages sound like. We have so many people saying, it's like you read my mind. That was like verbatim. That's exactly where I was. I thought I was so alone and unique for having that thought. Because there's extreme thoughts people have. Am I not with the right partner? Am I being punished by God? Why could low-income people could see whenever they want to have this beautiful home? It is raw, but we want to acknowledge and validate where they are in those extreme emotions. So through the program, they're understanding, wow, what do these stages sound like? Dr. Kate helps people understand psychologically, how do we get to that place? A lot of this is normal in terms of humans and how we think and how we process things. And then there's they'll hear the voices, they'll understand the psychological piece of it, and then they'll understand the context around what was happening at that stage. And then there's some self-reflection. Now that we gave you the words to communicate what was there, you probably just didn't see it in that context. You weren't able to communicate it in that way. Then you can ask people, how is that showing up in your journey? How's it manifesting? In what ways is that, limiting you in any way? So it's a level of acknowledgement, validation, but then when you do that and you meet them where they are, you can then start to empower them and shift them. You can start to help them realize they have a choice. They have a choice on how they interpret that thought. They have a choice in terms of the meaning they give it. They have a choice in terms of what they go do next. And really the empowerment comes where people start to shift their entire demeanor and look at their journey as owning it, trusting it, is starting to be more open to where each journey might take them. So there's so it's an online program. It does come with a beautiful workbook and journal, if you don't mind. It's just, we believe that, yes, everything's online, but we send each couple a beautiful kit. This is something where they can journal. The workbook helps them pull from the audio program. So we try to arm them, with a complete package.
Okay, so that's really interesting that you have, all right, so that's for the couple, but now you mentioned for the practitioner, there's a separate program, right? So most of the people who are watching this are going to be Billings teachers or Billings doctors. So what would we do? How would we contact you and say, we want to join your program? What would that look like?
Yeah, we love the conversations. So two things. One, on our website, there's a tab that says Become a Partner. We have a whole host of different partners with amazing skills and background and passion and knowledge. So we'd love to enter into a discussion of what partnership program looks best for the practitioner. Everyone's different. There is a level of getting you trained. We have these beautiful kits that we send for people that have offices and waiting rooms with brochures and a nice sign that's there. And the best part of our program is that if someone came to our website and bought the program, it's a couple $100 program. When we have practitioners that bundle our program in as just part of their care, we have some very accommodating programs that go down as low as $30 a couple. So our goal is, couples are too overwhelmed with all the things they're told to do and look at and try. And if this just becomes another recommendation, we're gonna lose that chance to address them as that whole person, that whole couple. And I think that 1+1 with the work that you're doing plus this, we can help really differentiate that patient experience. So we become extremely accommodating to make sure money is not the reason a couple is not getting this necessary emotional care as part of their treatment regimen.
Wonderful. Well, and so you touched a little bit on the research that went kind of behind this program and everything. And, Billings, with the Billings method, we had 850,000 hormonal studies that were done for the method. So it's super scientific. So can you tell us more about the science part and the research that goes along with your program?
Yeah, it was just, it was a 2-year research project. It was hundreds of interviews. Dr. Kate used what's called a biopsychosocial model of investigation. So the biology, the psychology, the social dynamics, and there was we use qualitative and quantitative analysis. So there was recorded conversations that gave us the context of themes, and then there was data to start to back that these themes statistically were relevant. So yeah, it was a process of learning the joys and sorrows of every story and trying to understand those moments of transition across these stories that were common, that start to say, wow, there's this connection and healing that was happening. So yeah, it was a couple-year project, had a control group that you brought back in, and then you looked and said, did they map to these particular transitions? And we never stopped the research. Just so Dr. Kate is, every day there's new stories that come in. Every story contributes something, but the reality, the net of the whole thing is, we're more than just biological beings. We're in your emotional health is not disconnected from your reproductive health. And there's so much research on if you're emotionally not well, and how can you be when you're got those constant thoughts, those what if scenarios that are flooding in your head every moment? How does that not start to weaken your overall spirit? And that emotional health ties into our hormone balance and inflammation levels and cortisol levels. And I think that we're sometimes quick to disconnect our biology from our psychology. And I just think that we're integrated humans, and we need to make sure that we're addressing both pieces as part of the equation. And for many couples, you know, this could be a change their course for their lives and their marriages, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I think that's so important that we encompass the whole person, like you said, and because it's so dear to them, and it affects the people that care about them, and so it's important to look at the whole person. And
well, absolutely, because many couples who have struggled with infertility, whether or not they achieve, sometimes they end up splitting up because the whole process is just so emotionally stressful and really tearing at them. So what a great program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. But not many people tell me also, those that are successful through maybe treatment or something, that there is such a level of almost like, you know, they have this guilt in terms of how things happened, or, you know, they could still have a bad day as a parent, but they feel like they shouldn't have that bad day because they struggled so long and they prayed for this miracle, but they're fighting with the emotions of, well, I can't not. So there's just a lot that I think can, and this is where so many people said the program equipped me with things that were far greater than the fertility journey itself. It's any struggle that we deal with as individuals in many ways becomes preparation, builds our character, and helps us for the next time that we deal with some level of adversity. And that's why, you know, I had a woman, and I think this is very unique of any caretaker. I had a woman that just this morning I was on from Australia that works, got the program through her NAPRO doctor. And she said of all the doctors that she ever talked to, this was the first doctor that could emotionally connect with her. And I shared with her live on the call. I said, do you know that doctor went through a 3.5-hour training course, and his whole staff did? And she said, Mark, I did not know this, but this is the first person that ever treated me and connected with me at a level and brought my tears to ease. And then also said, we have a program that's included because we know this is hard. It's almost like it takes vulnerability even as a caretaker to acknowledge. We have a poster that says, how are you doing, in parentheses, really? Because if we just press a little, no one's jumping up and down and enjoying doing any of this stuff, let's face it. And can we allow them to open up in that way and do it as a couple, you know? And she just really talked about how of all the entire industry, what an incredible experience she had with this doctor as a result of, and it didn't take him longer. It's just still, their timelines are very quick, but within that same amount of time was able to make that personal connection. And that's why we want to help, you know, the caretakers and providers to help empower them with this information.
So would, you know, what would you say is like your overall hope for couples when going through your program and going through this fertility, this journey? What would you hope to have them get from it?
Yeah, and our metrics are completely, do we not love the story of, I think over the holiday I had 2 people write about conception, and they felt that this shift really played a role. And one woman wrote, there was lots of factors, of course, involved. My husband and I were convinced emotionally we're in such a better place, because when you're acting out of desperation and panic and this better happen now, and what if this doesn't, I don't think the body's going to respond. As much as we love those stories, that's not what we can promise, and it's not really what we're even measuring. We are measuring quality of life changes. And at the end of the day, there's 3 things that we measure. There's metrics under them, but they have to do with someone's sense of self, where when you're through the struggle and this thing is wearing and beating you down, it becomes diminished. You define yourself by really what's not happening. Your web of identity of all the wonderful things that make you who you are and your value to this world start to be lost and become just fixated on this one thing relative to this future state of becoming a parent. And until that future state is met, you really start to discard who you are now as a person. So there's a really diminished sense of self that happens here to women generally. So, and we have metrics that help to hopefully through the program move them from being very diminished and broken to finding themselves and starting to be optimistic and trusting and understand. There's a whole process we go through. So it's about helping people get a more positive sense of self. Number 2, it's helping people to cope. it's still a journey. It's still ups and downs, ebbs and flows. But that anger, that jealousy, that constant rumination of what's wrong with me, and where you take on your label as this is my identity, whether it be my age or my statistics or the diagnosis that a doctor gave me, they start to live their whole life through that lens. And I think that we want to give people the tools to be able to cope and start to pick the things that really intuitively make sense for them as individuals and as a couple. So there's a whole coping set of metrics we look at. And then thirdly, when people are struggling, they generally just disengage from life. They disengage from social settings. Showing up at the birthday parties are hard. God forbid there's a baby shower, and there's a slow withdrawal from friends and family and loved ones and social settings. And even life and life plans get put on hold as we wait and try to fix this or potentially save up money. So we want people to be reconnected with themselves, each other, and ultimately not just cope and get by, but we had a practitioner said, the program's helping my couples actually thrive. And I just think that that's all we can do. We don't know what's going to happen next. None of us do. But that's all we can try to do is get them to that state.
So Mark, now it's really interesting. If we just boiled all this down to like one sentence, it's like, you want people to have a positive sense of self, right? And you want them to just look at the bigger picture of life. You're not going to be defined by your fertility, right?
Right.
What, it's making me think you almost need a parallel program for couples. What about not necessarily couples, but for an individual who's struggling to find a spouse, right? How many people out there would love to find their soulmate and they're dating or whatever, and they just can't find somebody? And I think going through so many of the same emotions.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Maybe I just got a new program for you.
We're going to create a dating website. That would be great. We'll help you find your partner, and hopefully we'll put babies on the planet. How amazing would that be? The whole life cycle. Yeah, but I think you're right. I think a lot of people look at this as, wow, any really tough situation. I don't care if you're living with incredible uncertainty, and that's what this is. It could be money, it could be health, it's easier said than done, than step back and appreciate and look at the things that it is easier said than done. And that the techniques and tools to help actually bring people to that place where, like this woman this morning, she said, we're just a healthier couple. That this delay, because she will not call herself infertility, and I don't blame her, but this delay became the preparation. This became the gift. And her husband, when they talked about the tools they've learned on how to communicate and know that this guy, her husband Mike, says, I'm here generally and she's over here. Neither's right or wrong, but our ability to validate, connect, understand, appreciate, respect. So I just look at them saying they're using this time, and that's it. This shouldn't be wasted time. This shouldn't be we're only valuable when we get to this next phase of our lives, or we achieve some status, or we get this thing. It's now. And for so many couples, they look back and say, wow, that not happening at that time was a blessing. And again, we're not trying to convince people that, but there is, for some who are experiencing secondary infertility, they talked about they had a child in their life already that they were just neglecting because they wanted the sibling gap to be within 2 years apart so they go to the same school and all the things that we think we're in complete control of. And we project on what success means. And when, so they looked at this as I had this life here and I came back to this life, or people that talked about maybe they weren't where they wanted to be career-wise, or the relationship wasn't where it was. So our goal is to help them find those treasures now, while at the same time still pursuing their path. You're not trying to convince someone to stop, but it's how do we do it in a different way.
That sounds great.
Yeah, thank you. It's been incredible.
I'm ready to sign up right now.
Yeah. Well, I would tell you, we wouldn't have kept going if the feedback from couples wasn't outstanding. I would have to just be very honest. This has been a love for 4 years now. A lot of sacrifice to take something that never existed and do this research and build this program. And we feel lucky. The comments coming in from people that we're not soliciting, that write us, just said, I came out of this dark cave I didn't know I was in. I feel free for the first time in years. Those comments like that, I mean, we're in such a unique position, but we're in a trusted position. They're trusting us to take care of them in a certain way. We're trusting us to make sure we're not just throwing another boatload of suggestions on them like their in-laws and best friends are all doing. So we're in a very, very trusted position, but I think what we do and how we treat them can just have a profound impact on their lives.
Yeah, so can you tell us more, like, where can we find your program? Where can we find you online? You know, just give us information of how we can get going.
Yeah.
Especially for providers. So like,
Sure.
so we're providers. So we want to be,
Yeah.
we want to join you as a provider. And how can we do that now?
Yeah, so it's our website is www.itsorganic-conceptions.com. There's a tab that says Become a Partner, and there's a small form to fill out. Someone on my team will be in touch with people within the next 24, 48 hours. We'd like to jump on this. We'll share with you what we've learned in terms of the programs we have today. We're very open to different arrangements. Things are starting to fall into buckets in terms of how people like to work with us and best offer this as part of their services. And I would just say that's probably the fastest way to engage in that dialogue. And then we're happy to then take those next steps. One of the things we're introducing in the next 30 days will be a new locator on our website. We want to promote those partners that actually, as much as they appreciate the physical work and their skill of what they learned, they have an appreciation that there's more to this than just the physical, and there is an emotional and spiritual. And when we bring all three together, great things happen. So anyone that joins our program, our goal is to highlight them as a partner. We got a bunch of random partners on our website today, not random, but it's not organized in the best way. So our hope is people are coming to our site as we continue to become more known. And then our goal is to say, you go to this partner, this program's included. Don't come to us, because they can care for you on many different levels. So our model is to be very channel friendly and try to make sure that our partners are thriving. So we would love to add more partners to the list, and we'd love to actually be a contributor to your business too, where people are coming to you because you're not just offering one element, but you're bringing something in for the woman. And then I think we often forget there's the couple here. So many of the action items are on the woman. It's the woman's orange, regardless of diagnosis. Generally, it's the woman. It's very few things that are touching the couple. A tool for a couple. This is date night. Look at each other. Do a module a week. In that healing and the strength that can come from that couple. A lot of practitioners say the burden I once felt, it's lifted. Why? This tool became the tool for them. They shouldn't need someone that has that weight. They should be doing this as a couple. So yeah, we look forward to partnering.
No, it's great. I think it's great you're really including the husband as well, because I find that, I see that with couples who have miscarriages. So often everyone's worried about the woman and everyone's asking the husband, well, how's she doing? How's she doing? And physically she's having a lot of changes, but no one really deals with the husband on the emotional end. And I look at the husband and say, well, how are you doing? And he starts answering by saying, was she this? I said, no, I didn't ask for that. I said, I asked how you were doing. And they're just like, this relief, like no one's asked them ever how they're doing. And I'm like, no, we have to acknowledge the husband and their loss.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is supposed to be about, like, this is a team sport here. This is about, you would think, the most incredible level of unity between a couple, but just the natural process, it just breaks us and takes us down two different ways. And again, in the program, we're constantly highlighting, even statistically, where the husband generally is at this phase versus the wife. No one right or wrong, that until they can close that gap, at least from a validation standpoint, and come together. And then for many, there just needs to be boundaries on what's right for us in terms of next steps. At what point is it okay, and have the courage to say enough in this area or that area? You know what? That's something that means something to us. So as much as it's on the list of the do not do, that's something that makes us happy as an individual, as a couple. Like my wife and I won't, but we gave up a million things, I will tell you. Sushi was one that she heard. Raw fish could be a factor. It was one of, honestly, 100 things, seemingly innocent little decisions to say, why wouldn't we? If it's contributing, get it off the list. In the program, we talk about that. That was our date night to our favorite sushi restaurant in Connecticut. It was a drive together. It was disconnecting from the week. It was a level of intimacy and connection. And when you start to strip away a bunch of seemingly little innocent decisions, and intimacy is completely planned with it, I'm telling you, it doesn't take long before life is very robotic and mechanical. And the spirit and that energy between a couple that can absolutely transform any medical diagnosis, I'm convinced, because I've just seen people that were told they can't conceive or have PCOS, endometriosis. We heard it all, that they had these unexpected conceptions. So it is possible, but I think that even though we can't guarantee that, why not invest into your emotional health and well? Why lose these years not being happy as a person, as a couple, and a contributor to life?
Well, thank you so much, Mark. This is really valuable, and I look forward to working with you some more. Just for me, for my business, my NFP, with my couples. I'm already thinking as you're talking about a whole bunch of couples that I could, share this with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.